for our core market and what makes us special. The next is picking a niche where we can win. So really understanding what the real demand looks like, how competitive is our service, and which location should we focus on. And finally, understanding where we already have some presence. So ultimately, if we've already got some wins in the SEO space, in those traditional blue links, this is a really good starting point for where we should optimize our brand to show up on AI search. Now, the third factor here, and I would say probably the most important one, is to build content that AI trusts. So this isn't just your website. This is actually can be helpful on OTAs as well to drive direct bookings, building up your authority on platforms like TripAdvisor, on private blog networks, building up citations from directories. Basically, your entire digital presence, including social media, will inform your GEO ranking and presence. But really, most importantly, providing value to your end user, to your customer. So if you're putting content on your website, it should be genuinely information rich, it should be genuinely useful, and it should really focus on providing value and answering questions, demonstrating your expertise to your target audience. That's what will really move the needle. And finally, we need to measure success. So at Heads on Pillows, we provide full visibility over how many bookings you're receiving, how many leads you're receiving, from which platforms these leads are coming from or these bookings are coming from. So month on month, we can measure how many bookings you're getting from ChatGPT, how many bookings you're getting from Gemini, Grok, and we can also demonstrate how often you show up for certain prompts. So how often are you showing up when someone's searching for best holiday rental manager, Sydney, for example? And this is really important because ultimately, if we're focusing on GEO, we need to understand the return on investment and we need to understand that it makes sense for your business. So we do have a rise of a zero-click journey. Traditional SEO, one of the biggest KPIs has been how much traffic is moving to your website from search engines. And this is still happening. We're still seeing a lot of traffic move through to websites like Labode Accommodations, but that traffic is actually lower in quantity and higher in quality. So usually what happens is users will visit your website when they're actually ready to book, and that awareness piece will happen on the AI engine. So on ChatGPT, you can expect less traffic to your website, but better quality traffic. But you should be also expecting more visibility on AI platforms as well. Ultimately, your guests are getting a more curated experience through AI search than they would on traditional Google. We're also seeing specific properties show up. So this is a real shift from traditional search, where on traditional SEO, it's usually sending the guest to your main homepage or a specific landing page. With GEO, we're seeing specific properties show up as a recommendation that are very tailored to the specific query that your guests are searching for. And we're also seeing a lead gen process that has really elevated the way users can find a service provider to look for a holiday rental management company. So AI is actually providing management company recommendations for investors who might have that single investment property, or they might be a more proactive investor with a multiple property portfolio looking for a luxury holiday rental manager or just a general short-term property manager in their market. And finally, property owners are moving to AI to ask questions like, who manages luxury Airbnb properties in Sydney? Who is the best holiday rental manager for high-end homes? And what companies can manage a short-term rental in Bondi, for example? So that lead gen piece has never been more important on AI search compared to traditional search. And it's something that for property managers like Labode, who have an incredible portfolio of properties and are looking for match fit homes that fit their profile of luxury and high end, can really benefit from showing up on AI search when their ideal owners or investors are searching for a holiday rental management company. So if your brand is not being mentioned in AI results, you could be invisible to potential owners and guests alike. So that's the quick overview from the Heads on Pillows perspective. And I'm really happy that we've got so many attendees today on the webinar to really hear and learn on a super high level about GEO and AI search. But more importantly than that, we've got Lisa on this webinar because this is a real world
I
example.
can't get the sound again. Oh,
This is this is a real world example of one of our amazing clients who has really benefited from GEO optimization. And Lisa, I'd love to hand over to you just to give a little bit of background on Labode, the types of properties that you have, and maybe the typical guests that you host as well.
Yeah, sure. So can everybody actually hear me?
we're
Can
hearing
we have a
you.
thumbs up? Yeah,
No,
everyone.
that's
Okay,
you
good, good, good,
talking.
good.
Turn mute on.
Okay, so Labode Accommodation has 280 properties. So our portfolio is about 60% of investor owners. So this is where the owners have no input on their properties at all. They fully hand it to us to fully manage, and we manage and operate that as an Airbnb for just for interest sake. We then have a selection of part-time homes. These might be like country owners that might come and use their home for half the time of the year. And then we've got a portfolio of part-time owners as well that may be going away overseas for 3 months, or they might be just opening up for Christmas and New Year. But we typically have at least a 4-week minimum on a lot of our properties. So the quality, so we've got a pretty high entry point for all of our portfolio. So it does need to, so the criteria is it does need to have something incredible. We also we vet our owners as well. You can't run a good property management company if you've got terrible owners. Um, and oh, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, I forgot what I was about to say. But so the portfolio is a bit of a mixture. And our typical guess, well, at the moment it's 50% international and 50% domestic. So the international market, I envision, will start to slow down with a bit of all the war that's happening at the moment. Um, and yeah, so we're dealing with a lot of production companies, insurance brokers. We have a lot of corporate partnerships as well that fill our properties, and we do run off a little bit of a hybrid model as well. So we fill our properties with longer stays during the winter period, and then shorter stays during the summer period. So so the criteria for our homes are, to give you an example, like the bathrooms and the kitchens must be fully renovated within the last 10 years. All of the furniture needs to be sort of under 5 to 6 years old. And it needs to have a certain aesthetic. So so like we could definitely take on a 2 bedroom property as long as it meets those other criteria. But a really good selling point might be gun barrel views, the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So just to talk about a solution. So Sam, this is in relation to the AI and GEO, yeah. So
Yeah,
we
totally.
engaged, yeah, cool. So we found that a marketing person wasn't quite hitting the spot. Like if you're hiring a sort of general marketing person, they're usually not experts at all fields. And so what I found is that I was really struggling to find a marketing person that was A, really good at design, B, really good at social media, C, doing, a digital marketing plan, and then you've got all your GEO, SEO, AdWords, blogs, the lot. So we decided to actually safety net our business actually by hiring heads on pillows. Because if our marketing person was to leave, then we've got no idea what's going on, or what's been done, or I don't know if many operators like yourself, but marketing's definitely not been my field of expertise, and I've really really struggled with it. So I did want someone that knows what they're doing. So we've been working with Heads on Pillows for a couple of years now. I first engaged them to do the SEO, and then and just in the last sort of 6 months, I think, Sam, we really decided to like ramp up our GEO because AI is where it's at basically. And so just to provide you guys with a few little stats from Heads on Pillows on what they have done for us. So with the lead generation conversion. It's nearly triple from the GEO, which is the AI search, compared to SEO. So it's tripled in the time that we've been working with Heads on Pillows. I don't know if you guys want to do a test for me right now, but I mean, you could put in luxury accommodation provider in Sydney and see if we actually come up. But that's what we've found from when I do the search. But the another stat is direct booking conversions from organic. Are up 133% in the last 6 months compared to the last 6 months. Now that's our AI search channels, which include Google, AI Overview, and ChatGPT. We've really focused on ChatGPT instead of and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but we've really focused on ChatGPT because I think it's the everyday Joe blogs SEO channel as opposed to Claude,
Totally.
which might be more tech driven. As an example. And for our organic search with that SEO and GEO AI search, our conversion revenue has increased from 45% to 71%. And then we've had a 24% increase in return users to our website due to increased brand awareness from the AI search. But just to give you guys a bit of an insight on what we do, we focus. So for our business, as opposed to hotels, if we don't have the properties, we don't have guests. So we really drive our owner slash property. That's the market that we're driving. But what we've actually noticed off the back of that is that we're getting a lot of bookings coming in off the back of us driving and directing owners to actually list with us, which I found really interesting. And I did a little test the other day. So we get an email template from Heads on Pillows with all the email addresses that's been submitted from all of the work that Heads on Pillows have been doing. And yeah, and we've found that like, I don't know, maybe I'll give you an example, maybe 4 out of the 20 inquiries that we've had each month are actually guest bookings. And so when I worked out the return on the investment, and this is what's really interesting, is if we just say each booking was worth $5,000 and then I times my 21% management fee off that. So I just need to quickly work that out now. I know, silly, I need a calculator, I know. But yeah, just say $20,000, yeah, times 21%, right? So that's $4,200 of actual income that's brought into our business from direct bookings. Doesn't even include the owners. So I should actually be spending, and I've got a meeting with my CFO next week about like double or tripling our spend across our social media because we're just receiving so many good direct bookings, and then and then obviously off the owners, off the back of well, what we're mainly marketing as our owners. So I don't know if any of that sort of stuff is really relevant to you guys, but that's just my experience at the moment.
I think that's super relevant, Lisa. Thank you so much. And I'm excited to get ready for that increase in ad spend because that's the amazing thing about digital ads. The more we spend, it's the more clicks, the more visibility and exposure to our target audience, whether that's to increase direct bookings or whether it's for lead gen as well. So that's amazing to hear. Thank you so much. I guess the other maybe question that we could dig into a little bit is obviously AI platforms are becoming more and more prevalent with your target audience, and to your point just then, you're seeing more guests actually discovering and booking through GEO. Has this changed a lot over the last few years? Like, Obviously, it's constantly evolving, but how would you say, generally speaking, not just through GEO, but other channels, how are your properties getting booked? How are your guests finding you in 2026?
Yeah, so we have 30% direct bookings, and then we have a grossly high 50% Airbnb. And then the rest is Booking.com, Marriott Bonvoy,
Yeah.
and all the other sort of littler ones that are out and about there. But I genuinely believe that yes, we have some good marketing, and yes, we have all the SEO and GEO and all the rest of it. But a lot of our guests, I think without the whole ecosystem, they wouldn't be finding us direct anyway. So to give you an example, in our Airbnb, we like to have a basically our host profile picture is our logo. Then in the listing description, if you can get away with it, try and throw our business name in there. And then in the title, our business name. So wherever you can on these other third-party platforms, it's, yeah, I think it's important to try and throw your brand out there because guests will always go direct. So, yeah, so I think that that's really important. But without the whole, so I think, there's an element of our 30% direct bookings that are going to, that are piggybacking off the back of Airbnb and all the other sites. And obviously, a big chunk from, we're seeing an increase from the work and the spend that we've been doing with Heads on Pillows. So I would just hope that, over the next sort of couple of years that we'd gradually see our direct bookings just keep going more and more and more. And we've been in the market for a long time and we've done absolutely zero marketing and we've piggybacked off all of the OTAs so badly. That's how our business has actually been set up. I've actually only done marketing in the last, like direct marketing for our own business, only because we're big enough now and we can actually
Yeah.
afford to do that in the last 2 years. We didn't even do anything on SEO or nothing. So um, yeah, so yeah, I, I know that's pretty transparent, but
No, it's
yeah, we're
amazing. And it's
yeah.
interesting you mention as well, Lisa, about the guests finding you through your OTA listing and then sometimes coming direct. What is becoming increasingly aligned is what guests do and what AI does. So what we're finding actually is we used to really like shun OTA listings and say like, we don't want too much visibility on OTAs, we want it all our website. But we're actually seeing OTAs can actually help us increase direct bookings through ChatGPT and AI search because the AI engines are crawling the entire internet for information about your properties. So if they see one of your beautiful holiday rentals in Sydney and it has great reviews on Booking.com or on Airbnb, then they might still push users to the direct booking listing based on the information on Airbnb. So it's exactly what you're describing guests are doing. Also, the AI algorithms are doing as well. So it's a very much like a realignment of these sort of two channels, being the guest experience and the search engine or AI engine experience, becoming more and more closely aligned.
100%. Like I see the OTAs as partners. Like we
Yeah,
value them so badly. And yeah, absolutely right. Sam, like I think the everyday Joe Blogs does know that if you go direct, you will get the best price or you will get benefits. And I think that's where businesses, in order to get direct bookings more, can absolutely leverage off that. And I know hotels do this really well where you can where if you book direct it's the cheap it's the cheapest platform, so just leverage
totally.
off those OTAs. Don't try and scoff them out and get them out of your business, and try and pay less because it is essentially part of your marketing plan. And the thing is,
Totally.
like, we just load our tariffs on top, which I'm sure everybody in this room does that, but just loads the tariffs on top of the rates. So I know it's not essentially we're not paying for it, but we kind of are. But I think it's just yeah, it's part of the whole marketing ecosystem, I think.
Completely agree. And it's interesting, the holiday rental space, we're quite lucky compared to other accommodation providers because we're in a unique position to do that, where we can mark up the rate for OTAs. Whereas when you look at a hotel, for example, they have to do the rate parity. So the OTAs say that they need to sell their direct rate at the same rate as it's offered on OTAs. And often we'll talk to holiday rental managers and they'll sort of say, so what's the point of doing direct bookings? Because it's the same revenue. But there's so many more benefits to direct bookings. You have that, and I think Labode is the perfect example of this because when someone comes to Labode Direct, they get the Labode experience from the very first touch point. They land on your website, which is this beautiful curated luxury experience, which is your brand colors, your tone of voice. They see the photos curated in the way you want them curated. They get the confirmation email from your concierge team. Whereas when you go through OTAs, sometimes the listings can be like another listing amongst a sea of listings, and you don't necessarily see that full bespoke Labode experience. But also, the OTAs will drive more traffic to our websites with those strategies that you just described, putting your logo in the profile picture, mentioning the brand name in the description. So there's a lot of reasons to pursue direct bookings. And ultimately, if your guests are coming
Yeah,
direct,
and the other thing,
sorry, you go.
sorry to cut you off, Sam. I think it was a bit of a
No, all
delay
good, all
there.
good. After you.
But yeah, I think with like ChatGPT, one thing that I'm doing as a user, and I don't know if anyone else is, but you get all your sources at the bottom of, so just say there's a guest, there's someone that's looking, or ChatGPT gives it the answers, and the source might be Airbnb, Labode, or maybe just Labode.
Yeah.
I suppose that's where you can kind of hook in that guest or whoever's looking, because they might be like, who is Labode? What is this? And then go in and check from the sources, the little icons down below in ChatGPT. But the other point I was just going to make actually is we do use Homhero as our property management software, and they are very, very good. One of the best, actually, one of the main reasons we went with them is so that we could load up our rates and do all sorts of funky fun things with our tariffs and pricing and splitting out fees and things like that. They are very, very custom. So any accommodation could use them, caravan parks, hotels, accommodation providers, self-service, that was genuinely one of the selling points that we did have with Homehero was the way that we can split and cut and our pricing and loading the rates and all that sort of stuff. Because I know that there are a few other PM property management systems where that is very restricted and it's just a one box fits all. So yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. And I'm excited to hear from Jake as well on some of the latest insights from Home Hero. They're our official PMS partner at Heads on Pillows. We only have one as well. We don't partner with any other PMS, and there's a very good reason for that because they are super reliable and that ability to have a bespoke solution is amazing as well. Which could be a good segue into Jake's piece as well about the latest innovations. The final that I thought is pretty interesting, and this number is from Travelport, so it's a super trusted statistic. But in 2025, so this number is probably even a little bit higher now, we're seeing nearly 70% of travelers actually prefer to use AI-powered recommendations when they're planning their trips. So I guess for holiday rental managers, big and small, if ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, if it's not part of your strategy yet, you're missing out on a very big chunk of the market. And I think this number is just going to keep increasing as AI adoption becomes more and more prevalent. Thank you so much, Lisa. So, Jake, tell us what is powering all of this behind the scenes? Over to you.
Uh, Thank you, Sam, and thanks, Lisa, as well. I did actually Google luxury accommodation provider in Sydney to see, and safe to say your number one organic result in Google as well as appearing in the LLM. So well done to
Yay.
Sam and the team there. It's working.
Sam's
Um,
like, phew.
yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so yeah, I might get just talk through just very quickly what Home Hero is. I know there's most on the call today are probably using Home Hero or have been exposed to it in the past, but just as a brief recap, We are an enterprise-grade end-to-end system for property managers. As Lisa pointed out, we pride ourselves on our pricing engine. We're actually one of the only ones, within our market and potentially within a small mix globally that offer length of stay pricing. So we've got some quite sophisticated engines that power the pricing module specifically. Not only that, but we've got 16,000 listings currently on the platform, and they connect with all of the channels that you'd expect from a PMS. So the Booking.coms, the Airbnbs, Expedia Network, and Marriott Hotels and Villas in there as well. And of course, there is a lot of communication that goes on within any property management company, whether that's with guests, whether that's feeding data between systems, updating prices, or organizing for a clean or maintenance. So all of that sits within Homhero. And yeah, I know today's not about Homhero, so what we might do is jump into the next one and we'll talk through a few of the aspects in the context of driving direct bookings with AI. So I think the first important aspect in today's topic around driving direct bookings with AI is some awareness that whether you're using Homehero or any other PMS for that matter, the information that you are entering into the PMS itself is then propagated out into the world of search. So whether it's your traditional search engines, which is the blue links that we mentioned before, or whether it's into an LLM such as Gemini or Grok, the information that you're putting in your PMS is quite important to consider. Not only will it feed then into the OTAs, so we can see this example on screen with one of Lisa's beautiful properties, the Horizon House in Bellevue Hill. You can see that it's fed that listing information and that listing name straight into the OTAs as the main heading, as well as the main heading for Labode as well. And that's what's called in SEO speak the page title. But I think it's very important to keep this in mind when you're entering information into the PMS, because often this can just be part of a process of uploading, potentially hundreds of properties, but it is potentially the first impression that guests or potential guests may see of your property in there. So I think that's one thing I just want to plant as a bit of a seed to think about for now. What I might do is jump into the next one, please. Which is about, taking that context and thinking about your own direct website. Obviously, talking about direct bookings, the majority of those come through the website itself. And many of our customers here at Homehero use similar website setups that often have, for example, a WordPress instance and a booking engine that is literally fed directly from Homehero in real time as part of their website setup. So I've used that as the premise for what we're seeing on screen at the moment, that it's a WordPress instance, but again, this applies to any content management system. If we think about that previous scenario where we've typed in, sorry, mate, I'll get you to go back. Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to intuitively skip through.
All good. If we think about that previous scenario where we've seen all the blue links on screen, there is actually the chance to stand out a bit from the OTAs and those standard page titles and meta titles that we saw there. And I guess the secret to doing this lies inside your content management system. So you can play with things like, we call them meta titles, but on screen you'll see it circled there as SEO title. And also meta descriptions, which allow you to potentially stand out, if you like, from what the OTAs are presenting. So I guess, the crux of that is really you've got the central source of data within the PMS, which obviously is sending to all of these different sources that are then published on Google or an LLM. But you have the opportunity to tailor that so that your own website can stand out and you can encourage to click to your own website as opposed to the OTA. So if you employ the right tactics here, you can really make it work in your favor for direct bookings. Now, a tool that's popped up recently, and I wouldn't say this is the be-all and end-all of all of the insights you can possibly get around GEO, but our friends at Microsoft have launched a free tool, which is a good tool to whet your appetite in terms of how you're appearing and what types of phrases you're appearing for. when your property management company or hotel for that matter appears in AI search. So if you go to Bing Webmaster Tools, you can actually sign up for a free account, and among other things, what it will show you is what we're looking at here on screen, which is actually for the Homehero website. It shows you the total number of citations, and it actually breaks down in keywords what people search for in order for you to appear in AI search or in the LLM. Um, this is obviously very handy because it gives you a bit of a feel for what you're appearing for, but also what you're not appearing for. And if you think about what Sam mentioned earlier along a lot of those long tail queries, it can really start to show you the gaps within your SEO and GEO strategy so that you can start honing in on those. So yeah, if you don't have Bing Webmaster Tools set up and you've got access to a savvy webmaster, I would encourage you to set that up and just have a look at how you're appearing within Bing AI and Copilot. And then last but not least, just a bit of a summary of some of these things we've gone through. Call it a bit of an actionable list about things you can take away. But the first of those is to remember to look at your listing in the PMS, not only in the context of your property itself, but how it then permeates into the search engines, whether they be AI or traditional search engines. And of course, keep in mind the OTAs as part of that assessment. Secondly, one that I haven't mentioned earlier, but again, definitely worth looking into is Google VR, Google Vacation Rentals, which is an ad type specifically for short-term rentals. Homehero integrates with this, and many other PMSs do as well. But keeping in mind that one of the biggest AI search systems is Gemini, and that this is a Google product, there is certainly times when Google is bringing these listings directly into travel suggestions. So if someone is looking for the best luxury holiday villa in Sydney, having your listing within Google VR increases your chances of appearing for that particular search query. And then last, the website content. So even to expand on this a bit further, don't rely on your PMS feeding the majority of content into your website. Rely on a couple of other sets of hands or some brains at an agency like Heads on Pillows, sorry, Sam, to flesh out that content. So I'm talking location pages, suburb area pages, potentially even things to do pages. I mean, I'm sure you've probably got some nuggets of information hidden away in guidebooks and whatnot that you could also potentially publish on your website as well.
Yeah, I love that last point, Jake. And I think a lot of our SME sort of type property manager companies, but also boutique hotels or smaller businesses that maybe even have like 15 or 20 holiday rentals, they'll often say to us, like, how can we possibly compete with the OTAs? But actually, that last piece around website content, often small, medium operators can easily compete with OTAs and big international brands because they have that guidebook content. It's that in-house knowledge. It's the local understanding that there's no way Booking.com or Airbnb could have the same level of detailed insights and understanding of, say, like the local Sydney market, like Lisa and her team would. So it's really important to understand that even if you're a small or medium player, you can absolutely compete in a big market because that niche or that understanding of your local area is a huge competitive advantage in the GEO and SEO space. Cool. So I'll breeze through these last few little slides because I think an hour always seems so long when we're planning, but it always goes so fast. And I want to open the room for some Q&A and just kind of leave with the final maybe points that GEO isn't about being everywhere. It's about being in the right place at the moment when your guest is looking to book or when your investor might be looking for a property manager. So we've got about 15 minutes left. We've got 56 amazing participants on this call. And we're really excited to open up the room to any questions. You can share your question in the chat or you can unmute yourself and just go for it. We'd love to hear if there's any questions. for Lisa or for Jake or myself about anything GEO or holiday rental management related or anything else, whatever you want to ask. About the surfboard behind Jake, maybe.
I'll have a go. Would you like? May I?
Excellent. I was hoping.
I'll start. I'll start it off. Hi everyone. My name is Russell. I'm actually head of marketing and technology for a company who operates 320 holiday homes in a nice little place called Phillip Island in downtown Victoria in Australia. Yeah. So my role here is quite interesting. My background is actually hotel operations, large scale hotel PMS, and I also had a digital marketing agency for a number of years. So kind of bringing those. We've mentioned that crossover between technology and digital marketing and traditional marketing. So I'm very lucky to have this role here. But I guess firstly, this is my third use or experience with working with Homhero. I'll just four quick points. And Lisa mentioned this too. Stacked pricing. There is nothing wrong with stacked pricing when it comes to pricing yourself against the OTAs, because at the end of the day, we have to pay for internal resources like me to actually fund some of this activity or heads on pillows. So stacked pricing is great. What we love about Homehero as well is rate forcing. That really helps us in terms because we have certain times throughout the year we can optimize our occupancy and revenue. And Homehero is the only one that does stack pricing, which is great. I also want to say support is great as well. And just to your comment, Jake, for those of you who have Homehero, we've just taken on one of the new templates that lovely Brad and the team have put together, and it also gave us an opportunity to have a look at the SEO performance of our new website as we built this. And I just want to reinforce Jake's comment then around go and create suburb pages, go and put interesting destination pages around suburbs and lovely pictures and things like that. It will really start to help if people are searching for a particular home in a particular suburb that you have. It really has shown a big difference just in the last 3 months for us. So thank you, Homehero. We love you down here in Melbourne. The other thing I just want to say is, when you say SEO is dead, it's very interesting. Like, if you search for Sydney accommodation, you'd be mad because it's so many page search results you're never going to get on the first couple of pages, 5, 7 pages. So forget about it. And the strategy before was to use long tail terms. So Sydney accommodation with pool in Kent Street or something like that, and hope that someone had some content that would match that search. What I'm hearing from you more though now is it's really understanding those long tail terms, or now we call them prompts, that appear in AI search, and then matching that with quality content, right? So the question becomes, I guess, for people, well, how do I know what those terms are, and what do you mean by quality content? And I just want to say thank you for the Bing tools. I use a tool called SEMrush, which kind of helps me look at, because I don't know I know what I type, but who knows what other people type, right? So that's where obviously Heads on Pillows comes into play if you don't have someone internally to work out what are people asking for, right? And then you can then craft the content, whether it be a destination piece of content, whether it be a guest story, or whether it be solving an FAQ around something. Is that how you see this magic working in understanding what the prompt is, and then deriving content that's going to meet those search terms?
I think I can answer that. Definitely the FAQ and providing answers to questions has never been more important. It's always, not always, maybe for the last 8 years or so, it's been an important part of SEO. But with AI search, that conversational, semantically driven content that's actually providing value and answering actual questions really moves the needle
Yeah.
across the board. So yeah, absolutely. Double down on your FAQ, double down on your local knowledge and information. Simple stuff like how far is this landmark from the airport? What are the best cafes in this neighborhood?
Yeah.
Do you allow pets? Do you have split system cooling? Like all of those questions that guests will ask ChatGPT that they wouldn't have asked Google. They would have gone to Google and maybe picked up the phone or sent an email. Now they're jumping onto ChatGPT, finding their preferred location and asking, does this property have a walk-in shower for my grandma who is traveling with me? And how far is it from the nearest Italian restaurant because we're celebrating someone's birthday? It's super specific. So the more answers you can give, the more likely you are to show up.
Yeah, I think there's two values in that. There's a value of the AI searchability. But if we look internally, if you're going to run something like the soon to be released unified inbox with AI in Home
Yeah,
Hero, those kind of questions are going to be asked from a guest in-house, like where can I go to eat or where can I do this? So building this content to me sounds like a win-win situation from a search perspective, but also from a service delivery perspective for someone in-house wanting to find this
totally.
information out. Correct?
Thank you so much, Russell. So we have a couple more questions, a few note takers announcing that they're in the meeting. But then we have Katie Love has said, with the tip of considering your listing name and how this will show up in search, any specific tips on how to optimize? What exactly would you suggest on how to improve maximize visibility with this title? Um, Jake, do
Yeah.
you want to have a crack at that?
Yeah, it I had a feeling this would come up, and unfortunately there's no set formula. It really depends on I guess what you're up against in terms of your own setup currently. So um, there was an interesting discussion earlier around the book to direct strategy from hotels versus short-term rentals. But if you think about that in the context of short-term rentals, what are the reasons that someone should book through your website as opposed to the OTA? Now, obviously, you want to play the game in the official way and not get in under anyone's skin when it comes to these kind of tactics. But if you offer for direct bookings only a welcome hamper, as an example, or a late checkout, these are the kinds of things that you could potentially surface in your metadata. Um, I wouldn't say that there is a set formula to that working every time, but I would encourage, let's say you've got 200 properties, to cut off a small slice of those, let's just say 10 or 20 properties, and experiment with that metadata a little bit and see what increases the click-through rate, see what increases the conversion, and learn from that and then scale up from there. So what I wouldn't recommend doing, particularly if your Home Hero user is going into Home Hero and changing all of your titles, if you're changing that title, obviously it's changing everything in every OTA. It's changing the website, and it could in fact break the slug within your Home Hero built website. So I wouldn't recommend just going in and going ham on the name within Home Hero itself and changing things. But if you're in your CMS, so your WordPress or whatever powers your website, certainly go and experiment with a small slice of what you've got and think about potentially, for example, tacking on the end, a reason to book with you, or making sure that you've got the region, and just all of the information you think should be in the title in the title. I hope that
Yeah.
answers the question. I know it's a little bit of a wishy-washy one, but the long and the short of it is experimentation.
I could have a little bit of a crack at that one, and I don't know
Mm.
if it works, but I know it works in Airbnb. So, Katie, you can actually edit your listing directly through Airbnb, which will optimize your listing in that particular platform. But Jake, there's a feature in Home Hero with the listing descriptions, and just to before I forget about that, is put as much in the listing descriptions as you absolutely can. If it's wheelchair friendly, if it's pet friendly, if it's all of those things that people that you might not think are important, i.e., a piano. This was at the Strive conference actually, because the SE, sorry, the A. I'm no expert, but I think the AI will pull and scrape that content.
Yep,
So, I mean, there's not many properties out there that do have pianos, but if you've got someone who's specifically looking for a property with a piano as an example, if you do have that specifically in your listing description, that will AI will scrape it and it will show up as so any of those properties that do have those kind of unique features, I would really hone in on that. But sorry, that was just so I didn't forget about that part. But Jake, in Home Hero, you've got your listing description, which you can basically push a button and it'll AI and regenerate the whole content through that. Is
that's right.
that correct? What's the benefit of using that? And does that help with Katie's question around not so much the listing, but optimizing with the listing name, but optimizing the listing? Does that optimize the listing in any way?
Yeah, I mean that's probably designed to give a bit of a freshen up, and potentially, if it has come from another source, making sure it is original. So that's it's designed, for the writer's block moment to create some fresh content within Homehero. Unfortunately, at this point in time, it doesn't allow for variations of a description in Homehero, so that one sends there and one sends there, which is why, I guess in that vein, Lisa, you could potentially regenerate a new version of the listing in separately outside of Homehero and use that in your website instead. There's other things that you could look at to make your website a bit different from the rest, with the view to driving those direct bookings. But
Yeah.
yeah, it really depends how the data flows between the two systems as well.
Yeah. But what we were talking about before though, Sam, so is now the way, because we were talking about like having your listing description the same on all the websites. And I know 2 years ago that's a big no-no. You want to have fresh content so that the guests do go directly. But is that shifting now because the more duplicated that content is, the more credibility it has on AI. So it's actually not a bad thing to have. So is that all changing now because of
It's a really interesting question, and there's in some ways there's an argument for both because duplicate content is still in traditional SEO sort of something that we try to avoid. It is better to have fresh and original content on each platform, but where you can succeed with that is when you have fresh and original content that has the same messaging and information to kind of reaffirm what you're saying. So, for example, with that property with the piano, it's featuring the piano on one listing, speaking about it in another way on another listing, posting it about it on your social media, having rich reviews on multiple platforms that praise how beautiful the piano is. So, repeating and reiterating what are your USPs and what makes a specific property special really helps. Having the exact word for word content is still probably a bit of a orange flag for a lot of the individual listings. It's not a critical kind of issue. It's probably one of those like risk assessment things because obviously not everyone has time to create fresh content for every single platform. But in an ideal world, we would have the same information written in a fresh way on each channel. But in reality, often having the same content on different platforms is still a net positive compared to not having the same sort of information repeated on each platform.
yeah, cool.
But it's
Okay.
a great question, and it is like having that consistent messaging and focusing on those consistent USPs across different platforms is super critical with GEO.
Yeah, thank you. I can actually answer Lucy's question next if you don't mind
Yeah,
me diving in
amazing.
on.
I love you too because I love this question as well.
Yeah, so I think the biggest mistake is not making a mistake. So all of those marketing ideas, and my God, goodness, over the years I've had some stupid ones of me doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things online that people still pull me up on. But the fact that 6 years later people are still pulling me up on it shows that it's out there and it's getting acknowledgement and it's getting seen. One thing I don't do that well because I'm not that much of a marketing person and I'm more of a entrepreneur slash but like coming up with the idea. I love coming up with the ideas, but I struggle not to not actually do them. But I think yeah, so yeah, so it's just not doing the first thing that pops into your brain, or not doing, yeah, because maybe it might get too hard. So I think just making those mistakes, even if they are the silliest things, um, yeah, I think is a really just get in and give the marketing a go because you never know, it might be the next best thing. My sister had this, she's got this gym called the Shred Shed, and she's been doing all sorts of weird and wonderful kind of content, but she did this content that chimed in with an AC/DC song on the big heavy things, and it got over. She's like this tiny little gym and on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and she got over 1.5 million likes on her Instagram account, and she was absolutely blown away. And they tried to do it. They tried to recreate it. She didn't like. She was blown away that got so many likes, and she didn't know why. and they tried to recreate it doing a different song and a different thing, but it didn't get near as many likes because it wasn't authentic, it wasn't original. It was just, yeah. So I think just give all these ideas that you have in your head a go. But one thing that actually is a bit of a tip for you guys is I downloaded ChatGPT on my phone, and what I do now is I just have the speakerphone ready. So I open, if I have any ideas that come into my head, I have the speakerphone ready. I talk into it on the ideas that I want to do, and then ask it to help me to recreate or actually get that out there. And so, I can sometimes spam Sam and his team on some of the ideas that I've got going. But that was just my answer to that question.
That's amazing, and that's the perfect answer. I couldn't agree more. Marketing is all about trying stuff, testing things, sometimes breaking things, seeing what happens, and getting data on what our audience resonates with, what they engage with, what the algorithms take up, what the algorithms maybe don't take up. And without going through that process of trying stuff outside the box, we'll never get to the level of great and even better. It's important. You have to experiment. You have to try different things, especially in this very fast changing and evolving landscape. I think that's an amazing note to end on, and we're pretty much spot on time. We've gone a couple of minutes over, but thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you, Jake, as well. And thank you to all the participants. This has been brilliant. You know where to find us all. Jump onto ChatGPT and search for best luxury accommodation Sydney, and you'll find Labode. You can search for Homhero as a PMS. You can search for Heads on Pillows. You can email us, connect on LinkedIn, pick up the phone and give us a call. We're really grateful for everyone attending today, and look forward to catching up with you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.